I'm Andrew Sawyer, area pecan agent for Southeast Georgia. We're going to look at pruning 2-year-old trees. So this tree just grew for one season, and now they're about to go into the second leaf. And how do you prune this? So what do you cut? So first thing I look at is what kind of growth did we get last year. And these branches grew, it's kind of like it grew one time. Usually have two times that they grow during the season. And some of these are kind of thin. So all this is the first year a tree is planted, it's stressed out. And you know, it's trying to get water, it's trying to grow roots. And even though there's some weeds here, this area was kept very clean this year. And so it just shows you these trees are under a lot of stress. But you know, to me, this branch is pretty decent right here. And the main thing on a 2-year tree, even if this was all taller, we just want to cut everything off and go right back to one stick, and then we're going to tip it. And that tipping is going to force it to grow out another year, and it allows this to get thicker, which is important, and allows the roots to grow more. So, very simple. So, sometimes that's the most aggravating thing. And I've sharpened these things many times. So here, the reason we want to tip this, as I mentioned, is it'll force a lot of this to grow back out. And in the 3rd year, we won't tip that. We do want to see a lot more growth before we get to that point. So somewhere in here, I'm just going to cut it. I mean, as long as see that cluster of buds? That's generally you want to cut underneath the cluster. But I also look at the girth here, the circumference here and here. There's a little bit of difference. So I like to just bring it down a little bit. And also, sometimes this kind of rots and you got this here. So what I like to do is just come in here, and you know, it's harder to cut because it's completely dead. But bring that down, and sometimes I bring it down just a little bit. That's not a big deal, but I like doing it. And this part actually ends up growing over this. You won't notice that in a few years. So we're out here pruning trees, and when you prune trees, we want to check inside these herbicide guards. I'm looking down in here, and there's dirt all the way up to here. And so these are from ants. And if you look down here, so what's the biggest problem with this? Well, it's not the ants themselves, because they're not causing any problem for us on the pecan trees, but it's that dirt that they're pulling up to the soil, up high on the tree. And so a tree, it's very important. If you've already planted trees, you know how important it is not to plant them too deep. Okay, but the reason we don't plant them too deep is on this above ground portion of the trunk, the tree cannot grow roots. So if this part is down in the ground, we lose the ability of that tree to be able to hold itself up in winds. Well, sometimes these ants start coming and they get up here way up on the tree. If they're left untouched, they can make this tree all of a sudden think it's deep and start trying to mess with problems down there. But another thing that that could happen, we had a really wet year last year, and this dirt would hold in moisture as well. And so the only thing that you really see hurt 2-year trees is root rot, believe it or not. So we had a lot of rain last year, and this soil here is really more of a sandy loam. It's moving water down, you know, but any water that sits in here is not good. So there's a few different baits that are pretty good for ants. One is extinguish, one is amdro. And so, you know, these baits applied down the row to trees a few times a year usually do a good job just keeping them off out of these strips and off of those trees. But if they do get a mound up in here, you do need to check that and get that out of there.